Let's do it, folks. Welcome to Dangerous Idea, to the tens of thousands of you joining around the world. Thank you for being here. Thank you for fighting for actual truth. Thank you so much for your support and for getting into getting. Let's get into it. I think that's what I was going to say. Let's get into it. Let's get going. Let's do this. It is day 137 of Israel's genocide against the people of Gaza, against the Palestinian people. I mean, the latest genocide, there was a light genocide going on earlier, but they've definitely sped it up over the past 137 days. Anyway, I will be digging into more of that and kind of the hidden agenda behind that. I will also be doing part 2 of destroying Sam Harris and his dumpster fire of pro-genocide propaganda, which would be funny if it weren't so not funny. It would be hilarious to see him spit out these talking points, the insane justifications for genocide. I will be getting into that, part 2 of that in a bit. But I want to start off with, today is Julian Assange's, it's the final hearing into whether he will be extradited to the United States. Just to reiterate, this is a country that has tortured one of the most important journalists, most important publishers that we will ever know in our lives. They have tortured him for 5 years, and that country that has tortured him for 5 years is deciding whether to ship him to a country that had had legit plans to assassinate him. That is what's going on right now in the courts in Britain. Anyway, here is Chris Hedges speaking outside of the hearing, and I'm going to play Stella Assange as well. But let's hear 1 minute of Chris Hedges speaking outside of the hearings, the Assange hearings in London today.
Justice will come for Julian Assange, but it will not come from within those courts. It will come with you. It will come with us in these streets. They know how corrupt this process is. They understand fully the judicial pantomime that they have engaged in from the inception to crucify the most courageous, most important journalists of our generation, and they are hoping they will not be called out. They are hoping that we will not react. They were hoping that we will not speak out. It is the pressure that you exert on these mandarins of injustice that will free Julian. And I want to thank everyone for coming today, because it is this force in this street and streets throughout the world that will finally bring Julian home. Thank you.
There it is, Chris Hedges. Mandarins of injustice. I couldn't have said it better myself. Mandarins of injustice. These are the courtesans of a banana republic, or a kangaroo court, I guess is really what I meant to say. And we are seeing this final stage in the extradition process of Julian Assange, who is dying right now in Belmarsh prison. But of course, if the extradition process were over, if it ended, if the U.S. dropped the charges, or if it were found that he was not going to be extradited, then he should be freed the following day, because the only reason they are holding him is because of the U.S.'s continued efforts to get him extradited to a country that had plans to assassinate, kidnap, or poison him. Those were legitimate plans within the CIA while Mike Pompeo was there, while Donald Trump was in power in the United States. Yet we know that it doesn't matter whether Donald Trump is in power, or Joe Biden is in power, or Obama's in power, or Bush is in power, or Skeletor's in power. It doesn't fucking matter, all right? They want to crush this man because they want to crush truth. They want to crush transparency. That is why they have gone after Julian Assange for over a decade now. He is one of the most important journalists that has ever lived, definitely within our lifetimes. And they want to make sure that others learn the lesson, that if you are going to reveal the crimes of the empire, of the most powerful nation and nation states this world has ever known, at least in terms of military size, then you will be crushed. You will be kept in prison. You will be tortured in one form or another. They want to send that example. Julian Assange is an example. And so if any of us support or want truth and justice in this world, then we need to stand up for those who are the tip of the spear, for those who are the Julian Assanges of the world and the Edward Snowdens of the world and the Chelsea Mannings of the world. We have to stand up for those who are out front getting their lives destroyed, bringing us this truth, bringing us this transparency, bringing us the reality of the crimes of our ruling elite. We have to fight for them as we have been fighting for Julian Assange for so many years now. Here, I want to also bring you a little over a minute of, or maybe a minute of Stella Assange's speech outside the hearings as well. And she was inside. And she talked about the injustice that she sees there as all of these proceedings. Julian Assange, by the way, did not even attend the beginning of this proceeding today because he is too ill. He did not attend via Zoom or in person. And even if he had attended in person, they would have put him, as they proved in previous proceedings, they would have put him in a giant Tic Tac container because he's Hannibal Lecter. They would have put him in a giant plexiglass box where he can't even barely hear what's going on in his own proceedings. Really, it's almost worse than putting the Hannibal Lecter mask across his face as if he's a frothing dog. This is someone who did nothing but reveal absolute truth every day that he operated at WikiLeaks. Nothing was ever proven wrong that WikiLeaks posted. Whereas CNN and MSNBC and Fox News, BBC and ABC and NBC and CBC, they print and pump out an endless array of stuff that has been proven wrong, incorrect, mistruth, bullshit. That is what they pump out. He pumped out the truth, and that is what he's being prosecuted for, continues to be prosecuted for. Here is Stella Assange, his wife.
How can you even entertain this hearing knowing what we know? It's all on the public record. And yet it continues. It's only a handful of us in that room, but you know what the stakes are. You understand what this is about. It's about you, it's about us, it's about the public's right to know. It's about the right to be able to speak freely without being put in prison and hounded and terrorized by the state. Thank you.
It's true. These proceedings have a lot to do with whether we, you, me, everyone has the right to speak out, to speak up about the truth, about what our government doing, about the crimes that our government is involved in. And if Julian Assange is kept in prison for doing just that, for revealing the truth, for revealing the crimes, then it says so much to all the rest of us who want to reveal the truth and reveal the crime. And that's why it is ever so obvious that our mainstream media are cowards at minimum. I mean, they are blood-soaked murderers at worst, but at minimum, they are cowards to not stand up for Julian Assange, for someone who was doing their job better than they could. And many of them used his information for stories initially until they got the signal from the ruling elite, from the empire, that was not okay. And now they've all turned on him and forgotten him and left him to die. They are all cowards and they're all pathetic. And this shows it, more than ever. The fact that you can get this far into the process, that this man can be tortured for over a decade, because even when he was in the Ecuadorian embassy, he was in a single room for years on end. So it's still a form of torture, even before he was in technically prison. But anyway, I wanted to bring to you the beginning of those proceedings. They are important. And like I said, you have to be ready to protest like hell if and when he gets shipped to the United States, because we will just wake up one morning and he will be here. It will be a surprise. We will not know it's going to happen. And suddenly he will be in a U.S. prison, and we are going to have to protest like hell if that happens. So I wanted to bring you these proceedings and tell everyone to be ready. Lace up your boots, all right, folks? Make sure you get the good laces, all right? Not the old ones that are like tattered, and then you go to tie it, and then one end breaks off, and then your whole day's ruined. Don't do that. Be ready. New laces, everyone. New laces. That's what I'm here to say. But I do think there is a connection between this and the next story I wanted to get to, which is day 137 of Israel's special genocide operation. I wanted to, the connection here is that we are seeing it's more of a full frontal ability of the ruling elite of the U.S. empire. And yes, I consider Israel part and arm of the U.S. empire. And I consider, sometimes I'll say Western countries, but really at this moment in time, it is the U.S.-led Western countries. I mean, Europe, especially after the proxy war, the beginning of the proxy war with Russia, has been pushed back into vassal state situation. Most of the European states are supporting Israel's genocide operation. And anyway, we are seeing that this is more of a full frontal genocide, and they are asking us to believe that murdering children is justice, that horrific ongoing human rights abuses are fine and okay. And of course, Julian Assange, the connection here is that Julian Assange revealed to us many of those horrible human rights abuses, those horrible crimes by various governments, not just the United States, but also Britain and Australia, and even countries that the U.S. accused him of working for. He revealed things about Russia and about China and about Peru and so many other countries via WikiLeaks. It wasn't just him, but via WikiLeaks. And his revelations had to be covered up, had to be suppressed, had to be, and in order to do that, they had to crush the messenger. They had to show the rest of us, do not do what he did. Do not reveal the truth of this empire, or we will do to you what we've done to him. And that is why he's in prison right now. Truth tellers are called traitors, right? That's what I'm called as well. And that's why I'm the most censored comedian commentator in the United States. That's why my TV show of 8 years was sanctioned into oblivion. That's why my YouTube channel was banned around the world. Speaking of that, since I have a new YouTube channel, make sure you click subscribe and thumbs up. I'll throw in a promo here, why don't I, in the middle of this speech. But anyway, there is a very clear connection, a very clear line going between what Julian Assange did, which was reveal the truth to us, reveal the truth of the empire's crimes, and what is going on right now with the U.S.-backed genocide in Gaza, which are continued empire crimes against humanity, war crimes, etc. And they are full front and center. We can see them streamed online. And we are being expected by the propaganda, by nation state, but by other propagandists like Sam Harris, who I'm going to get to in a few minutes. We are being expected to believe that it's okay, that genocide is okay, that murdering children is okay. It's okay when it's done in the name of the empire. And that is what we are being expected to believe. And that is why Julian Assange has been crushed for revealing those crimes, so many of them. I mean, we've just had a little taste, a little bit of what Assange, of course, revealed. But meanwhile, here's what the U.S. is doing. As Joe Biden claims he wants a ceasefire, and as so many officials claim they want a ceasefire, the U.S. is threatening to veto the new ceasefire resolution at the UN Security Council. The U.S. is saying they would veto a ceasefire resolution. This is not even a Israel's committing genocide resolution. This is not an Israel's apartheid state resolution. This is not an Israel's an occupying force resolution. This is just a ceasefire resolution, and the U.S. is saying they would veto it. The U.S. is threatening, this is coming from popularresistance.org, the U.S. is threatening to veto a resolution calling for a ceasefire in Gaza at the UN Security Council as the U.S. continues to provide political cover for the Israeli massacre of Palestinians. U.S. Ambassador to the UN, Linda Thomas-Greenfield, said in a statement that if the resolution, which is being drafted by Algeria, was brought to a vote, it would not be adopted by the U.S. Thomas-Greenfield justified U.S. opposition to a ceasefire by pointing to U.S. efforts to push for a new hostage deal between Israel and Hamas. However, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu vetoed hostage talks last week, and Qatar, the mediator of the negotiations, said Saturday that things were not looking promising because Netanyahu doesn't want the hostages. As anyone with half a brain cell knows, Israel's goal is to kill the hostages, kill the hostage takers, kill everyone around the hostage takers, kill the civilians. It's called ethnic cleansing. It's called genocide. That's what they want. They do not care whether they get the hostages back. In fact, what was it? 2 of the hostages came out with white flags and they were shot by the IDF. The IDF also put poison gas into some of the tunnels, which ultimately killed an IDF soldier who was one of the hostages, and the mother of that soldier is accusing Netanyahu and the government of gassing her son, as they did in Auschwitz. That's what the mother is saying. You can read that article at Gray Zone, among other places. And she has accused the government of murdering her son, who was IDF and was one of the hostages. But anyway, so he doesn't actually want the hostages back. It's laughable to say that. So the U.S. is threatening to veto this, but there is one positive, folks. The UN representative for the U.S. is a Black woman. So that makes this a really progressive thing that we're doing. Okay? We are saying no to a ceasefire as Israel bombs children every single day, as Israel kills more children percentage-wise than any modern conflict, as Israel murders more journalists than all the journalists murdered in Vietnam, than all the journalists murdered in World War II, as Israel murders medics and kidnaps hospital directors. Don't worry, folks. It is fine, because the UN representative for the U.S. who's saying that a ceasefire will not be allowed is a Black woman. So progress, folks. Progress. Also, the spokesperson for the Biden White House, whenever they have the press conferences, also a Black woman. So you can see progress. We are dropping bombs on children, but we're doing it with faces that are not white men. And this is so much progress. I'm so proud of us. Okay. I'm getting people are telling me that they actually already vetoed the bill. So this article is from yesterday. So this apparently the U.S. already vetoed it. I missed that. Sorry. I can't keep up with all of the horrific shit that we do. Anyway, same. All the points I just made are exactly the same, except that it's not a threat to veto. It's an actual veto. Sticking on this same subject. And by the way, folks, if you do a super chat, I will try and address it fairly soon after you do it. And thank you so much for those of you who are members who make this show possible. I hope those of you who are not will consider becoming a member at leecamp.net, or you can find it on my link tree there. But on this same topic, I want to bring you Yanis Varoufakis. You probably know his name. This is him speaking on Israel, on the ongoing genocide operation, day 137. He's a Greek economist. He's a superstar. He's known around the world. He's also a politician. He previously was a member of the left-wing party Syriza, and he was Greece's Minister of Finance when he was trying his best to make it so that the debt that Greece owes would not be exacted out of the people, would not be exacted, would not be sucked out of your average workers, your average people in Greece. He did attempt to do that. I think he, went up against a massive system and could not achieve what he wanted. But anyway, this is him. He really is a superstar. And I should be speaking to a documentary filmmaker, old acquaintance of mine named Raul Martinez, who has made a documentary on Yanis Varoufakis. And I should be talking to him within the next week or two. Also, another guest alert. I will have presidential candidate Claudia De La Cruz on the show again on Thursday. So hope you'll tune in for that. But okay, let me see here. Let me get. All right, here he is. This is Yanis Varoufakis speaking about Israel.
Gaza. So this is what's happening. The West, especially those who claim to care about human rights, we must accept that we have now proven beyond dispute that we never cared as countries, as polities, as establishments, as media about human rights. We only cared about our human rights and the human rights of our friends, of our bastards, right? If you are not one of us, you don't have human rights. You can be bombed, you're never killed. Even if we kill you, you die. Whenever they...
What he's referencing there, most of you probably already caught it, is when he says, when we kill you, we didn't kill you. He's talking about the articles. He's talking about the mainstream media. He's talking about the spokespeople for the Biden White House or the Netanyahu government. When we kill you, we didn't kill you. You just died. He's talking about how they always do the passive voice. I've done segments on this before where they use the passive voice. They say Gazans died from explosions or Gazans found dead. They use the passive voice. They use this cryptic stuff, acting like, well, how did they die? Who knows? I don't know. They just showed up dead. When they showed up to the party, they were dead. And so that's what he's referencing there. A little, he kind of glazes over it, but
say, hang on, what's happening? They are terrorists, right? So,
and there he said, if you stop and say, wait, what are we doing? This is horrific. What are we doing? Then you're a traitor. You're a terrorist. And that again points back to Julian Assange, right? Julian Assange, perhaps more than anyone over the past 20 years, at least in terms of what he revealed, more than anyone around the world stood up and said, wait, what are you doing? What are you doing in Iraq? What are you doing in these countries? He was, in terms of a mountain revealed, top of the mountain. And what did they call him? They called him a traitor. They called him a sleazeball. They called him every name in the book they could come up with in order to justify persecuting a truth teller. And so that's another thing that Giannis is saying there.
Never before has the West's image around the world been so terrible. What is happening is, at once, in the West, opinion, public opinion, conventional wisdom is solidifying its support for Israel's genocide, but the rest of the world is becoming more and more disillusioned with the so-called principles or ethical dimension of the Western polity, of the Western way of thinking.
And so it's really interesting what he's saying there, that the consensus is being solidified among Western states, U.S.-led, really it's the U.S. empire, but Western states in general. The consensus is being solidified among the governing bodies to endorse this genocide by Israel. That is what's happening. We're seeing a heavy push for that, a massive push for that. But among the people of the world, you've got 63% or 65% or whatever of the United States saying that that we need a ceasefire. But even beyond that, even if you ignore the United States, 80% of this world lives in countries that are opposed to this genocide, opposed to Israel, opposed to what's going on here. So the consensus of the world is to be against this. And when I titled this episode, "The Hidden Agenda is Revealed," I mean that it is being revealed to the world, much of what the U.S. stands for. And I know that you guys are smart. Most of you were like, I already knew what the U.S. stood for. But there are many who do not follow the day-to-day actions of the day-to-day machinations of your U.S. political elite, etc. And so I feel it is being revealed more than ever what it is that the U.S. and Western countries stand for, and it is being revealed because of this genocide. The hidden agenda is that human rights don't matter at all to the ruling elite of this empire. The hidden agenda is that mass murder of children, no less, mass murder is fine and just when done against the enemies of the U.S./Israeli empire. The hidden agenda is that there is no international order or laws that matter to the ruling elite at all. The hidden agenda is that the ruling elite can literally bomb children, women, innocent people. They can starve children to death and call it justice and jump up and down and say, look at the justice we're enacting as we starve children. It really is unbelievable. It's an unbelievable and dystopian level of cognitive dissonance that they're trying to force onto people. They're trying to get us to turn against our own souls and think that starving children is okay or bombing children is acceptable. No matter what bullshit reasons they cocked up, they concoct. I mean, they are cocking this up, but whatever they concoct is, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. But they want us to believe, oh, no, it does, because thing we made up about October 7th. I mean, it is just unbelievable. I want to give you a quote here from Caitlin Johnstone's recent article. She said, the propaganda machine is the linchpin of their power, of the Western U.S. empire power. It's what holds the empire together. Without the ability to manipulate the public at a mass scale, our rulers cannot rule. And so I hope that we're seeing the cracking of this propaganda machine. We're seeing the cracking apart of this the bullshit agenda that they try to tell us is their agenda, right? The U.S. will tell you, well, we're trying to create peace around the world. We're trying to help people around the world. We're trying to pull people out of poverty around the world. We're trying to help, I already said help people, but we're trying to create a just world. And of course, it's all laughable. That's what they want you to believe. And I'm hopeful that we're seeing it crack apart into a million pieces. Because if we allow this genocide to go on and be accepted, and the Israel may get everything they want in terms of clearing out Gaza, stealing land, murdering tons of people. They may get all they want in that regard, but if the end result is that the world sees through it all, then there is an achievement there. Whereas if the end result is that they have told us that genocide's okay, then we are basically living in a different version of the Nazi universe, a Nazi-run world. If genocide is acceptable, if that's the new thing now, is you can genocide a people and just say, oh, it's okay because A, B, and C. I mean, so there is a hope that this propaganda machine is just unraveling. And it is a machine. And so now I think it's a good moment to bring you this article from Kit Klarenberg, who at Mint Press, and I just told you yesterday that he had his Twitter banned for at least 3 months. I don't know whether it'll end up being permanent or not, but at least 3 months. But anyway, he talks about and he calls it Democrat linked, but I actually think it's, considering the fact that pro-Israel money flows to both Democrats and Republicans, it's really the duopoly linked. It's Democrat and Republican linked, but maybe he's talking about specific people are Democrats. But anyway, he says the Democrat linked PR firm tapped by pro-Israel groups to control the Gaza war narrative. And you've probably seen some of this PR to try and justify Israel's ongoing genocide, their special genocide operation. On December 6th, it was announced with much fanfare that the 10-7 Project, a new centralized communications operation to promote continued U.S. bipartisan support for Israel, push for accurate, complete coverage of the Israel-Hamas war, right? They want to make sure to call it the Israel-Hamas war because they don't want you to believe this is Hamas. This is a war on the Gazan people, which is what it is, a war on Palestinians. So really, this is an Israeli-Palestinian genocide. And anyway, I'm interrupting myself, but to continue from his article, he says, and the 10-7 Project, his goal is to achieve a stronger media focus on victims of October 7th. And then he looked into who and what is funding the 10-7 Project, and it's not exactly clear. Publicity material spoke vaguely of an unnamed coterie of philanthropists, right? Isn't it amazing you could fund genocide, pro-genocide propaganda and be called a philanthropist? I'm just helping the world. I'm putting out stuff to justify genocide. I'm paying for it. I'm footing the bill. So I'm a good guy. I'm a philanthropist. It's what I do. But he said, but its founders offer some clues. Here are some of the founders. The 5 founders are the American Jewish Committee, AJC, the Jewish Federations of North America, JFNA, the Anti-Defamation League, ADL, the American Israel Public Affairs Committee, AIPAC, and the Conference of Presidents of Major American Jewish Organizations. This is quite the rogues gallery of Zionist entities, several of which have deplorable track records of actively whitewashing, if not outright facilitating, Israeli apartheid propaganda activities that have become turbocharged since 10/7. The organization is just the latest salvo in the Zionist state's long-running information war against Palestinians and the Western world. The 10/7 Project's public footprint represents but the visible tip of something far larger and considerably more destructive. He talks about the ADL, and I found this really fascinating, debunking some of the, oh man, anti-Semitic acts are really on the rise, and oh, it's such a plague on humanity, all these anti-Semitic acts. Now, here's the thing, is first of all, even if these numbers were true, the anti-Semitic acts would be on the rise because Israel's committing genocide. And Israel has worked very hard to make you conflate Israel and Judaism as if they're one and the same, which they are not. I'm an anti-Zionist Jew. There are millions of us. If I have to keep repeating that, I will. But anyway, they have worked very hard to make you think that Israel is Judaism. And therefore, there are people around the world that now hate Jews because they hate what Israel's doing. So Israel is doing that. So thank you, Israel, for doing that. But the ADL has since October 7th published a steady stream of reports lapped up by the media, largely without question, testifying to an explosion of anti-Semitic incidents across the Western world in the wake of Operation Al-Aqsa Flood, in the wake of 10/7. The ADL recorded 2,000 anti-Semitic incidents, including 905 anti-Israel rallies. So they're saying there's been thousands of anti-Semitic incidents across, and I can't tell if this is just across America or around the world, but I think it's around the world. 2,000 anti-Semitic, oh my God, oh, it's everywhere. Oh, geez, wow, this is terrible. And then, as Kit Klarenberg puts here, shocking stuff, one might think. Yet, as an investigation by Mint Press, Alan's McLeod revealed, the ADL is producing such staggering figures by categorizing anti-Israel and pro-Palestine rallies and corresponding chants as both individual anti-Semitic incidents. So basically, if you have a rally that is against genocide right now, that they're calling that anti-Semitic. If you have a rally where you say Palestinians should be allowed to be free, they're calling that an anti-Semitic incident. If you march with 5 people through your college chanting Free Palestine or Let Gaza Live, they're calling that an anti-Semitic incident. So basically, you are not allowed to request, to politely request no genocide. Excuse me, sir. Could we have no genocide, please? Excuse me, sir. Could you go a little lighter on the genocide for me? Thank you. You're not allowed to politely request no genocide because they're calling that anti-Semitic actions. So all of these numbers that they're coming up with are bullshit. Like, I don't know what the real numbers are, but I can tell you the ones they're providing are garbage. And yet our mainstream media, I didn't look up how many articles have referenced their stats, but many have. Our mainstream media, especially across the United States, just takes those numbers at face value and says, oh my God, look at all the anti-Semitic incidents. And then you actually look at the numbers and you go, oh, 95% of them are like a rally at a college saying no more genocide, saying don't bomb Gaza, saying don't bomb children. I mean, it really is a backwards world where you can't protest to end a genocide or else you're anti-Semitic, you're racist, you're a bigot, you're like, what? Why would endorsing genocide make me a better person? It's like so backwards. But of course, that's the goal, right? That's the hidden agendas. They want you to believe the opposite of what is moral, what is just, what is real. So let's see. He says, despite the exposure of its embarrassing Enron-style accounting, the league continues to pump out the same bogus quote-unquote research at regular intervals. On December 12th, it claimed anti-Semitism in the U.S. was now up 337%, which is a lot. And I should know because it's my name upside down. And I know my name upside down. 337% in the wake of October 7th, and it's at an all-time record. Oh my God. But in fact, again, they're calling any rally to end genocide as being anti-Jew. And of course, that is nonsense. It is stupid. He then talks about AIPAC. He says it's 2022 installments. So this is AIPAC boasting. This is not someone accusing AIPAC of something. This is them bragging. In 2022, they said, or for 2022, they said, among other things, that they bagged $3.3 billion for security assistance to Israel with no added conditions. Security assistance means bombs. And having gifted $17.5 million, the most of any U.S. PAC, Political Action Committee, to pro-Israel candidates, 98% of whom won their elections, in the process defeating 13 anti-Israel challengers. Now, anti-Israel challengers could mean that these people say that Israel is an apartheid state, which is just factually. It's just a dictionary definition. Anti-Israel could mean that these people are not willing to say that Israel deserves every last square foot of the entire region. Anyway, they call a lot of things anti-Israel. You know, you showed up at a Free Palestine rally. You said there shouldn't be a genocide. Those are all anti-Israel, according to them. But so there's AIPAC bragging that when they want to defeat a anti-Israel candidate, they succeed. 98% of the time, they succeed. So anyway, I wanted to bring you that about the revelations of who exactly funding these things and the bullshit stats of rise of anti-Semitism across the nation. Let's see. I'll bring you one more story before we destroy Sam Harris, his pro-genocide garbage. This is part 2 of that. If you saw my part 1, this is different. So hang in there. I had to do a part 2 because it's just too much to, you know, I was like a one-armed paper hanger. I couldn't handle it all. I don't know if you've heard that expression. If any of you even know what a paper hanger is, that's pretty impressive. Anyway, so this is a report from the U.S. government. This is a report from the U.S. government saying that since we started fighting against terrorism in Africa, acts of terrorism have gone up 100,000% across Africa. So that's the U.S. fighting terrorism across Africa. Deaths from terrorism in Africa this is responsible statecraft, which is not as you well know, this is not a left-wing outlet. This is a very middle-of-the-road pro-U.S. outlet, but they're just reporting on what the U.S. State Department reported. Deaths from terrorism in Africa have skyrocketed more than 100,000% during the U.S. war on terror, according to a new study by Africa Center for Strategic Studies, Pentagon, not State Department, a Pentagon research institution. So the Pentagon researched how well they're doing in this war on terror and found that terrorism has gone up 100,000% since, I don't want to say since we showed up. The U.S. has been in Africa for decades and decades and decades doing things like assassinating Patrice Lumumba. But since we began the war on terror in Africa, 100,000% increase. These findings contradict claims by the U.S. Africa Command, AFRICOM, that it is thwarting terrorist threats on the continent and promoting security and stability. Now, are any of you shocked that we're not promoting security and stability? Throughout all of Africa, the State Department counted a total of just 9 terrorist attacks in 2002 and 2003, resulting in a combined 23 casualties. At that time, the U.S. was just beginning a decades-long effort to provide billions of dollars in security assistance, train many thousands of African military personnel, set up dozens of outposts, dispatch its own commandos on a wide range of missions, create proxy forces, launch drone strikes, and even engage in ground combat with militants in Africa. And most of the time that we're training these military personnel in Africa, we're training them to basically defend the US-backed government so that if another force or another group of people, or maybe just average people, start voting for change, there's a nice, strong military force to stamp out anything like that, to stamp out anyone who might come and get rid of the US-backed puppet. Most Americans, including members of Congress, are unaware of the extent of these operations. I've covered that before, the extent of AFRICOM, which we have largely just glossed over. Even reports to Congress have a lot of fiction in them as to what the U.S. is actually doing in Africa. Most Americans are unaware of the extent of these operations and how little they have done to protect African lives. Last year, fatalities from militant Islamic violence in Africa rose by 20%, from 19,412 in 2022 to 23,322, reaching a record level of lethal violence across the Africa Center. This represents almost a doubling in deaths since 2021 and 101,300% jump since 2002. Just totally insane. But of course, another aspect of this is that the U.S. has, made sure that many of these countries remain very unstable. The U.S. has couped many countries in Africa. The U.S. has supported rebel factions many times in Africa, has armed them. So when you create instability and armed groups, and you do all you can to make sure that a stable, often the ones that the U.S. government is going after are socialist leaders usually, but make everything occur, that make sure you do everything you can to stop stable socialist leaders or others that don't work with the U.S. empire. Then of course you end up with unstable groups. You end up with these fighting factions. And of course it goes back even farther than that to, not just the slave trade, but even 1855, the Berlin Conference, where basically European nations got together and literally put a big Africa map on the wall, drew lines across it to decide which parts of Africa to give to each European nation. Now, they were already there, 1855, right? Slave trade was already going on for years and years, but it wasn't divided up into nation states like this until that time. And in that conference, there was a whopping 0 representatives from Africa. So they showed up, Europeans showed up, and the European leaders put a map on the wall. The U.S. was there, but the U.S. didn't have much power back then. They were still, they had interests, but they weren't, the U.S. wasn't running the show back then. But put the map on the wall, draw the lines to everything. Well, what did that do? That first of all made, solidified all these colonialism, settler colonialism, etc., that just destroyed Africa, the extraction of resources, slaves just being maybe the worst. But then on top of that, it drew nation states that took warring tribes and put them in the same nation and said, you're now the same country. It took families and drew a line across them and said, you're now in opposite countries. You're now in different countries that have differing, goals and motivations and things. So it just ripped apart Africa the way that it was working at the time. And much of the warring that goes on to this day is still related to that insanity. And of course, the U.S. empire and the European nations, the Western nations, did everything they could to make sure the leaders that they liked were in power, often dictators, often horrific leaders. But anyway, here's just a little update about what's been going on the African continent, as Africa's terrorism has gone up 100,000% since the U.S. said, we're here to stop terrorism. Always works. Our security. We just bring security everywhere we go, don't we? Okay, folks, the rest of this, including my destruction, my obliteration of Sam Harris Part 2, is at rumble.com/Lee Camp. It is free to watch over there. You can also watch at my locals page. If you're a member, watch over on locals. To everyone on locals, you're the best. You make this show possible. I couldn't do it without you because you pay a whopping 38 cents an episode and make it possible for me to continue to do these shows. But anyway, everybody who wants the free continued stream, rumble.com/Lee Camp, join me over there. And I will see you there in just a second. Rumble.com/Lee Camp.